And today we're going to learn about yet another experimental technique to characterize polymers, which is size exclusion chromatography or gel permutation chromatography. So you'll see both of those terms utilized in literature. So the kind of goal again of today's lecture is we're going to look and understand fractionization techniques in gel permutation chromatography or size exclusion chromatography to basically obtain a complete molecular weight distribution. So in basically PSET 2, we looked at number average molecular weight, weight average molecular weight. You were given, or given this magical number or magical kind of probability curves of molecular weight, and we saw that if this was your m sub n, your m sub w always had to be to the right of that curve. So you had some distribution molecular weights, but how do we actually obtain kind of these values, and how many polymer chains of this specific molecular weight? Well, one of the ways you could do that, one of the techniques you could do to basically obtain this probability distributions, that distribution molecular weight to calculate your PDI, is using size exclusion or gel permutation chromatography. So size exclusion chromatography, or GPC, SEC or GPC, basically, again, it allows the measurement of entire molecular weight distribution. So much more useful information, obviously, again, because you could calculate that PDI, the polydispersity index. Remember, PDI must be greater than or equal to 1. Usually it varies between 1 and 2 for most polymers. It could be from 1, I think, to like 40. Again, look back in the notes there. But that is much more useful than either for intrinsic viscosity when we found a single molecular weight average, or osmometry measurements, as we just talked about in the last series of videos. Anyway, so this is how size exclusion chromatography works. So we have this long column packed with porous beads. So they have varying diameters and pore sizes. So usually on the order from 50 to 100,000 angstroms. So people will oftentimes also use like multiple columns too, with different size beads to increase the resolution. So sometimes you might have a single column, and then all the pores, we'll see it in here, you flow your polymer. But sometimes people will have multiple ones to really kind of, again, filter through and distinguish between kind of molecular weight and sizes, increasing your resolution of your experiment. So it would flow here, then it'd flow here, and then flow here, and you'd get, eventually at the end, again, your eluted volume. But anyway, we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves as usual. So the beads are cross-linked or polymer gels, so hence GPC, gel permutation chromatography. And this is kind of the example of what we're talking about here. So we have our GPC column. So again, porous beads, you can kind of see it on this scale. So just kind of these black dots, beads, different sizes, and they're cross-linked. So the pore sizes here vary, and they vary quite significantly. So 50 to 10 to the 5. So you're talking about, again, 4 orders of magnitude in terms of sizes of these cross-links. So you have some solution, some polymer, and what you do is you pour or you push your polymer solution through the column very, very slowly. Why do we want to push through very, very slowly? Well, we don't want our shear rate to be really, really high because we know if our shear rate's high, we extend our polymers, we basically bias our number of conformations. So we have our polymer in an extended state, then we're in the freely draining case, and all these other properties kind of change. So we want to push it very, very slowly so that we don't bias the number of conformations. We don't want to extend it and decrease our delta S conformation. So that's what we're dealing with here. So as the solution flows, our polymer is going to start to interact with these porous beads. And at the very end, as it, as it pours through, see here we pour our polymer solution through, it interacts with these polymers or with these kind of pores, and finally at the end we kind of collect in here. We'll see a better diagram in just a second. So at the very end of our experiment, we have some eluted volume collected as a function of time. We have basically a concentration detector. So as the polymer flows through, usually there's some type of like light scattering or UV detector or IR detector or refractive index detector. Oftentimes you're going to use a good solvent to have a different refractive index from the polymer. More on this if you read lecture 8 on our light scattering experiments. But anyways, that's typically kind of the detector used to, so we're basically plotting as a function of time. There's going to be some like intensity versus time, and you're going to get some like peaks. And these peaks are where we can see polymers escape from our column. So let's think, we know that polymers will typically have a wide distributions of our molecular sizes. So PDI equal to 1, you should be a little bit suspicious of that. But we also know that our pores, our beads, have some distribution of pore sizes. So as you can kind of see in this diagram here, I'm going to have some large polymers, high molecular weight polymers, and I'm going to have some small molecular weight, low molecular weight polymers. So depending on the size of the polymer, some polymers, like this big polymer, is not going to be able to fit into this pore and interact with that bead. Why is that? Well, the reason is what happens when I try to compress and push a polymer through that kind of tiny pore. I have to compress the polymer. What energy penalty am I paying here? Delta S conformational or configurational. Yes, as you compress the polymer, just like in a bad solvent, that is not energetically favorable. So a large polymer will not want to basically explore these kind of pores here. Smaller polymers definitely can. So what's going to happen here is some polymers, depending on the size, will penetrate some of the pores. So small polymers are going to be able to access and explore many, many more pores than large polymers. So again, we'll be able to penetrate some of the pores depending on the size of the polymers and the size of the pores. So depending on how many beads the polymer is going to interact with, it is going to vary essentially the time that it takes to reach the bottom of your column here. So you're going to see basically these difference, the eluted volume, what comes out, the polymers that come out will vary as a function of time, and thus you could kind of deduce the differences of polymer sizes here. So larger polymers are going to escape first. So in our plot of like intensity versus time, if you see kind of a peak here, this is your the first peak is your highest molecular weight polymer. Why is that? Well, it's the largest polymer, right? High molecular weight, we know that N scales proportionally to molecular weight. High molecular weight are large polymer chains. Large polymer chains aren't going to interact with all these different pores. They're only going to be able to interact with the largest pores. So they're going to skip interacting with some of these beads and just flow straight down. So you'll see that curve first. At the very end, the smaller ones are going to come out much later. Why? Well, because they can explore. Again, there's not this big energy penalty in your conformational entropy states in order to kind of explore those smaller pore sizes. So the smaller polymers are going to be able to explore a lot. They're going to interact with all these different pores, and it's going to take forever for them to kind of finally escape. It's kind of like the, if you remember, like the Price is Right, the Jenga, that kind of, kind of falling game. It's essentially like that. But anyways, a little bit later on. So we're going to be able to separate based on size due to this residence time. So the time that the polymers spend inside of these pores of these beads. So we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but this is not an exact technique. So we have to calibrate to a reference sample. So it kind of limits this technique a little bit. So it's not like a first principle. It's not like those kind of really nice curves where we can get some quantitative information, but still a useful technique nonetheless. So again, this is kind of the idea. So put your polymer solution in this column. There could be, again, multiple columns here that you flow through to increase your resolution. Your UV detector will collect eluted volume as a function of time, and you'll get these different spikes. If you have a curve like this, that's essentially a single curve right here versus a curve like this, which has a higher polydispersity index. This one, right? Because you're getting, again, really, really different, kind of peaks. Here, you're only kind of getting this one single molecular weight. So more spikes, usually larger PDI. But anyways, we'll talk about that a little bit later on. So the cool part about this, the really, really fun part about this, analyzing this from a kind of theory perspective, are kind of the thermodynamic, again, energy battle going on, as we kind of have always seen in this course with size exclusion chromatography. So this is a really, really unique case because instead, where we're always battling between enthalpy and entropy, so here and here, although we saw a little bit, usually we're battling between this guy and this guy. This is a unique case because it's a competition between the entropic contributions. So it is not entropy and enthalpy, it's entropy versus entropy. And specifically, the competition between our favorable entropy increase upon mixing of our polymer and solvent inside the bead. So in that pore, if I put a polymer here, with some solvent and mix, I get an increase in my delta S of mixing. But as that polymer goes inside of that pore, it's unfavorable in terms of entropy because of the loss of configurational entropy. So again, from our large size polymers being compressed into a small pore size. So we know how to deal with this energy or this entropy contribution. So it's just the same one that we've got derived in lecture 3. Again, that was the kind of so critical here. So for the entropy of compression, remember this is just a scaling. Usually there's a kind of a minus sign here. So our unperturbed polymer, as this polymer again basically decreases, this delta S negative explodes. But remember, delta G equals H minus T delta S. If you kind of say that upon mixing, or upon entering here, there's no kind of change in conformational entropy or enthalpic. Anyways, either way, this negative becomes a positive, so it shoots up. So this term here, if that's negative, becomes positive. Delta G becomes positive. So compressing it again is very, very unfavorable entropically. So we're reducing our delta S configurational. So our delta S configurational, the number of states, it decreases drastically. So you can write this change in conformational entropy term, the configurational or conformational entropy term for larger polymers compressed in the inner small pores, just like this. So just like we saw kind of previously. So radius of the pore is the average. It's really hard to measure like the radius of a pore. So usually the radius of a pore is deduced by basically the volume, volume of my pore to my surface area of my pore, which is going to be some characteristic distance, hopefully, or characteristic length. You've probably seen this very similar, like the bio number. But anyways, it's going to give you basically some volume or radius. So the entropy increase is the same as we've seen kind of previously. So we are, again, as we compress our polymer, we try to fit a huge polymer inside of a really, 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 really small pore. This value, again, negative in terms of entropy, energy. That's just the scaling. So as the polymer gets huge, we try to stuff it into a small pore. That is going to be very, very energetically unfavorable. So again, because we are limiting the number of conformational states, we're going to have to kind of compress that, our nice flowing polymer into kind of this dot in order to fit it inside of a really, really small pore. So next time we're going to get into the eluted volume and kind of look at that mixing term and then finish off this derivation. So we covered kind of the key aspects here. So just remember, as I look at my curve of intensity or concentration as a function of time, the first polymers that come out of this solution are going to be my high molecular weight polymers. So the first ones that come out here, high molecular weight. The last ones, low molecular weight. Why? These ones don't want to be compressed in the pore. These ones can explore, they have a longer residence time in the beads, so they're going to explore all those different pore sizes. So that's about it for today. Please let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.